are Derek Banks and Beau Bullock. Both are currently employed as senior security analysts for Black Hills Information Security. A little bit of background on each. Derek has more than 20 years experience in IT industry and has worked in aerospace, defense, banking, manufacturing, and software development industry. Beau, on the other hand, has held a position in financial health and even works as half-naked TV host. Beau has experience with all aspects of enterprise security, including pen testing, wireless security, vulnerability analysis, amongst others. I'm turning it over to Beau and Derek.
Can everyone hear me? All right, can everybody hear me now?
Yeah.
Let's get it to the right level. All right.
Is this one working?
Yes.
Yeah, sweet. It's got like official microphones. It's nice.
I don't have to yell.
Yeah. So, yeah, we decided to basically put together a presentation on what we throw in our bags when we go for a physical or a red team assessment, for that matter. And specifically, we wanted to kind of not just talk about getting into a building, because a lot of the presentations that you see on physical attacks tend to be like, oh, here's how to pick a lock, or here's how to like basically social engineer a way in. We're going to cover that stuff very briefly, but for the most part, we're going to talk about how to further your digital endeavor of sorts after you've gotten into a building. So we'll cover getting in first, but most of the time, it's really not hard for us to get into a building for the most part. I mean, it can be tough here and there, but once you're in, what do you do? How do you go about actually attacking a network without getting caught? So obviously, 90% of the time, we get in remotely. Phishing attacks are huge, obviously, still. And most attackers are still getting in via remote attacks, phishing. And especially, if you've ever seen any of our webcasts, we are very big, avid enthusiasts of hacking external-facing portals like OA, or any sort of like third-party VPN service or anything like that, because a lot of those are typically end up being tied back to an Active Directory domain, and we typically have very good success rates at actually spraying users' passwords and getting into those services.
Yeah, and also we've been getting more work for physical and red team stuff. So we're going to try and demo something that we would do, and so hopefully the demo docs will be favorable to us. Also, so there's a lot of stuff up here, and we're going to go pretty quickly on through some of the slides. If there's something you want to see in action, we'll be at the booth all day. So if we didn't demo something you're interested in, please come by and let us know.
Yeah, I mean, the idea here is we're going to cover a lot of different tools and things that we just throw in our bag. So we have the ability to, if we encounter a different problem on an assessment, that we have the right tools to fit the job. And like I said, most of the time we're getting it remote, but if that fails, then you have to get into the organization, and you really, if you're an attacker that is dedicated to targeting a specific organization, usually you have to resort to physical attacks and actually going to the site. So, like I said, having the right tools is obviously the best thing to go to the
and being prepared.
Yeah, being prepared, obviously. Yeah, so like I said, we wanted to share what we have here. So, quick thing about us, we're not going to throw a bunch of letters on the screen for certs and stuff, but we have them. We have a number of SAMs and OffSec certs. We are avid OA enthusiasts, as I said. If you've seen any of our presentations before, like 90% of the research I personally have done has been targeting OA. If you've seen any of the history between me and Microsoft and OA, we've had quite a bit of fun there. But we do. So I'm actually the only one from the company that's here in Florida. So if you are local to Tampa, we have a meetup that we do, Cigar City Sec. It's a City Sec meetup. Basically, we go meet up at Cigar City and drink beers and talk about it in just a second. We've got
if by chance someone here is from the coast of Virginia as well, I have one too. So yeah,
Yeah, and on the Orlando side, from Orlando, we have Citrus Tech over there too, so worth checking out. All right, let's talk about our go bag. So the first thing, Derek's going to talk about the quality of the bag.
Yeah, so I like the Go Ruck series of stuff. Now, if you go look at the price of these bags, yes, they are expensive, but they are bomb-proof, and they flip open. And, you know, I guess in terms of tactical bags, it has the MOLLE that you can add attachments. I don't really like to do that, but the best part about this bag is that it has a lifetime warranty, and I made it through TSA carrying, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 pounds, and it wasn't uncomfortable at all. 2 laptops and the majority of this gear right here. So I like that, but it's really a personal choice. The biggest thing is I think that you need to comfortably be able to carry your gear. And then weatherproofing is kind of a concern. Any of the stuff that's made out of Cordura, I think you're going to be okay, but it's certainly not waterproof. If waterproof is something that you need, if it's raining really hard, I'm probably just going to sit at the coffee shop and try remote stuff. So,
yeah. Speaking of remotes, so this is a topic that typically isn't talked about too much in presentations that at least I haven't seen, is remote physical attacks. Something that you either send to the organization via mail or something that you drop in the parking lot of the organization. So the first thing we'll talk about is the USB drop. It's something most people have heard about. Drop some malware on a USB in the parking lot of an organization. I consider it a remote physical attack because you're technically not walking into the organization. You're not trying to social engineer your way into the building itself. But these devices can make their way in because people are very concerned about confidential information that got dropped in the parking lot. You write payroll on the USB or confidential or
no one would ever open that.
nobody, no. And, yeah, and put an Excel file with a macro calling back to a server. Inside the USB itself, somebody brings it in the organization. They see budget 2017 or payroll information and
Payroll increases.
Payroll increases or decreases. So yeah, we're fans of specifically payload-wise. We're fans of PowerShell Empire. We've had a lot of good success with it. So I mean, you probably agree with me.
Yeah, I really like PowerShell Empire, so thanks to the guys that make it. That would be my first choice, mainly because it's customizable enough where I personally haven't had it cost very much, but I know some folks who claim to have. I like that the best. Then also there's the Unicorn tool from TrustedSec that is really good for making macro-based payloads.
So this is something kind of unique that I've been working on. So on a recent red team engagement, I had the idea of how can I just get a shell in this network without them actually plugging something into one of their systems. So I was thinking, people like gifts. What if I sent them a backdoor Amazon Fire Stick or backdoor Roku for that matter as a gift? Hey, from your higher ups, we're really happy with what you've been working on here. So here's your free streaming media device. So I actually backdoored Amazon Fire Stick and did this. It's not that hard. They run Android, so basically any Android malware that's already out there works, and you can backdoor APKs too and put them on these things. And they plug it into obviously TV and then connect to hopefully a corporate Wi-Fi network, and you have a remote shell. So just something to consider. People do enjoy gifts, so you send them things that plug in. The only caveat to that is hopefully they're not taking it to their home network because that most likely be out of scope. Wireless hacking. So.
Yeah, so like we said at the beginning, you can probably do a whole talk on attacking wireless, right? So if you don't cover something and you want to know more in depth, please stop by. So some of the things that I actually ran into. So here's some of the gear that we have. I like the alpha cards. So you might think that people don't have insecure wireless nowadays. A lot of you probably have, WPA2 Enterprise with some kind of certificate enforcement and authentication. I was on an engagement recently where we did a survey of the whole campus, and we're looking at their wireless infrastructure, and I noticed that their guest network had a tag at the end of it calling it _EXT, and it turned out this was an open network, and it was actually plugged into the flat corporate network. and you can get to it from the parking lot. So yeah, these things happen. So doing a wireless survey is something you can do passively and definitely can be successful.
So probably the most important aspect to any physical engagement is having your get out of jail free card. So, if you're a pen tester, this is something that you have to have. Because if you get caught, you have to have something to show to the person that caught you, saying, hey, I'm actually authorized to do this. Please don't call the cops, or please don't shoot me, you armed guard. I have authorization from somebody who works here. But the fun thing is, and this is something that Jason Street actually, I think is famous for, is he created, a spoofed or fake authorization form. So he has this real one, but then he also created a fake one that actually has a contact of somebody he controls. So you have you get caught breaking in. Say, hey, no, here's my authorization form. Call this guy. He's like your manager, or a higher up.
And now you're supposed to help me.
Yeah, and he calls somebody and the person you control says, oh yeah, the guy's authorized. Just let him go. He's all right. So you get away and can continue your further endeavor. But so get out of jail free card is a must. Social engineering, another topic that could absolutely be many presentations worth of material here. We're briefly just going to grace through this because it's not really part of our go bag. It's of sorts,
Oh, no, I was going to say, I have been on physical engagements where just walking in worked, and I was able to find a domain joint computer that was basically publicly accessible, that had the administrator password on the sticky note on it. I've also just knocked before and got badged in by someone who was out back on the cell phone. So pretending like you're supposed to be there really does work.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I actually had a guard, so I got on an elevator that was a badge access elevator to get up to one of the next floors. And I was stuck. I was like, oh, well, I can't actually go up. And, people got in the elevator, they're like, oh, well, are you supposed to be here? And they questioned me, which is good. It's good to be questioned by people that work there. But they were like, oh, yeah, no, so you're visiting somebody here. Well, that's okay. The guard at the front, he'll badge you up for you. So I went to the guard at the front, and the guy just came over and badged me up. Bizarre. He said, yeah, so you're here to meet somebody, right? Yes, I am. I'm here to meet somebody at this organization up here on this floor. Let me in.
People want to be helpful. Yeah. It's in their nature.
Lock picks?
Yeah, so again, I've actually gotten busted trying to pick a lock on an engagement, and I had to show my get out of jail free card. That was one of my unsuccessful ones. It is useful to have. I think nowadays, finding a lock to pick, you might, be in a filing cabinet situation more so than actually getting in. And we'll talk about the more popular way of getting into a building here in the
bypassing devices?
Well, that's definitely one, right? I have used the credit card trick before, where I just shouldn't open the door with a credit card. You just, learn to identify what that vulnerability looks like. I have not used the under the door tool or compressed air. I've seen it done. I've also, if anyone is really into this stuff and seen Deviant Alam's video on YouTube where he uses whiskey, apparently that works. So RFID cloning. So one thing that I've noticed is that there's a misplaced trust that badge access is actually secure. Places I've worked, places that I've tested, if it's a badge access, no one's ever going to get into that, right? Well, there are tools for that. So there's two main ways that you're going to get in through this type of access for breaking in. There's a tap that you can actually put inside of like a hid device. They're very easy to open, actually. And then you can clone a badge. Two other ways are getting access to the badge and cloning it, or even doing it at distance, which is actually pretty scary, right? So a little bit about RFID real quick. Again, this is a topic that could be its own talk. So there's two common frequencies. Tools like the Proxmark will actually do both high and low frequency. And in terms of when you actually badge, the protocol that is talking to the access server or to the computer that's controlling that, YGAN is the most common format. And I will note that personally in my research into this, that it is a completely different world that I'm used to, and it's an ongoing journey. It's very complicated if you're not in the space. So one thing that is, or one of the taps is the BLE key. So this is a Bluetooth device, Bluetooth Low Energy device, that was presented at Black Hat in 2015. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually open the HID device. It has one screw at the bottom, and you're going to plug in, or sorry, put the wires in to the device, and it's going to read the signal that's going across the wire. And then at a relatively short distance, you'll be able to replay the badge swipes that go in and actually gain access to the door. So a newer one that I saw at ShmooCon and actually purchased from the guy is the ESP key. So this is a little bit different over Bluetooth. It actually stands up its own Wi-Fi hotspot that you can then access, and it has a web interface that you can, again, read and then replay the badges and get access. It's not quite for sale yet, but I saw the demonstration of it, and wow, it's really awesome. Oh, and so the Proxmark. So this you can get for around $300 at Hacker Warehouse. This is going to be, you have to have the badge or be very close to the badge to get it. And you have to know what they're using, if it's high frequency or low frequency. The best part about it is remote. You can carry it on you. So you can wear a jacket and have it connected to a probably NetHunter phone and just read the badge and then go replay the badge again. And then there's the Bishop Fox Tastic. This is the one that actually scares me the most because you can do it at distance. I think they claim 6 feet. So basically you're going to have a big HID device that's connected to an Arduino with their code that they open source. And as people walk by and you're sitting outside pretending to be on Twitter or whatever, you'll gain the badges as they walk by you, and then you can figure out how to get in from there.
Okay, so up until this point, we've kind of talked about how to, or the items we would use to gain access, first of all, to get inside a building, to get some sort of level of, what can we do now inside the actual organization. So the rest of the presentation, pretty much after we've gotten into a building, what can we do then? What can we use to actually compromise the organization fully while remaining without getting caught, obviously. So one of the things that I spent a good amount of time working on is Pentest Dropbox. You've probably heard of the Pwn plug, or from Pony Express. It's basically a little Linux Dropbox that looks like a power plug of sorts that you would plug into a wall and have remote access, and it looks very inconspicuous. It's in a corner of a building. Or in a corner of a room under a table. Maybe it looks like a printer power pack, that kind of thing. So those are pretty expensive. I mean, they're in the $1,200 per rig, I think. So I decided to build one. And in doing so, I tested out a number of different SBCs, the small microcomputers, like Raspberry Pis, Beagle and Black, and then the Odroid C2 is really what I settled on. And due to its massive power and just it's faster, it's a lot faster. I tested out a lot of different things. But so the primary thing with this was I wanted something that if I got into a building, I could plug this in to an Ethernet port on the wall and have it potentially call back out of their network so that I could have a remote shell outside the network from my own C2 server, but also have capability to connect to it directly over Wi-Fi, just in case outbound rules out of the network, if they were to block my traffic out of the network, how could I control it remotely still, but not actually have like a full C2 connection? So that this thing has a Wi-Fi interface. And the other thing that you could consider is actually having a 3G interface that is completely out-of-band communication channel out of the network as well. So you have the physical device plugged into an Ethernet port on the wall. You now have a full-blown, it's actually running Kali Linux, full-blown Kali Linux Dropbox on the network, and you have remote access, let's say, over a 3G connection. Right now, I set it up to call out over HTTP, HTTPS, and also SSH tunneling out of the network. But you could actually use DNS tunneling, which is really sneaky. You could have it connecting out over DNS requests, which to your internal DNS server that might just look like normal traffic. But the idea being that you have a full-blown testing system on the network, and you drop it and then walk out, and now you can access it remotely and perform a pen test of sorts from the Dropbox. So yeah, I mean, relatively unnoticeable. Something that I will be including in that device eventually is full-blown NAC bypass as well. So right now, I've only had success building the NAC bypass portion on a BeagleBone Black. So this device here, it looks super rigged, right? I mean, I got a couple different USB Ethernet adapters attached to it. And so the point with NAC bypass, if you're not familiar with NAC, or Network Access Control, Network Access Control essentially prevents unauthorized devices from being plugged into a network. So my idea is I'm going to plug into a network. If that device is not on an authorized list with proper NAC implementations, you will not be able to actually use it. It will get quarantined off the network quickly. But in some environments that we've tested that have NAC, there are actual ways to get around that. I mean, honestly, the primary way to get around it is to find a printer, because most of the time printers don't have the ability to actually install certs or that kind of thing that NAC actually use to identify devices. So you find a printer, and you could plug the Pentest Dropbox in there, maybe spoof the MAC address of the printer itself, and a lot of times you'll be able to bypass NAC that way. But in other cases, let's say you don't find a printer, or maybe the printers actually do allow certs for some reason, or a phone. You can find a desktop that is connected to the network, and basically meet in the middle with this device. And what happens is, so you have the Ethernet coming into the desktop itself, right? So you have the desktop to the wall initially, right? And then you basically remove the desktop to the wall, desktop to this to the wall. And before it does anything, it just listens and passively hears the traffic going through. So to the network, it just looks like a wire of sorts. It looks like an Ethernet cable's basically bridged directly to the desktop. But this device is actually passively listening to all the traffic that's going by and determines where's your in and out, right? So here's the egress port that's going to the wall. Here's the ingress coming into the desktop. What are the MAC addresses associated with that? What type of user agents? So that's one of the things that NAC actually uses as well. Is if it sees common user agents, it can kind of build a profile on the devices on the other side. So if you can kind of enumerate the user agents that are going across as well, you can kind of spoof those. And I've had great success with this device, basically bypassing NAC controls. But similar to the Dropbox, I mean that's essentially what it is too. I mean it's a Linux distribution. But like I said, I'm going to eventually include it in the Pentest Dropbox I built before. I just haven't had time to do it yet. Conboot. Yeah, I'll take it. So Conboot is a really awesome tool. It's technically a network support tool, right?
Yes, systems administration.
Systems
administration tool.
Yeah. So with Conboot, it basically allows you to bypass the authentication mechanism on pretty much any system. What I mean by that is you can boot a Windows desktop or even Mac to the Conboot, and the Conboot device will actually bypass the authentication portion to the desktop itself. So if you find an open system, or not open, but if you find a terminal at an organization, you walk into the building, you find let's say a Windows desktop, you reboot the computer to the Conboot USB, it will bypass the authentication portion. You can now actually access the system as an administrator, a local administrator, to the system without any authentication whatsoever. And it sounds crazy, but it actually works very, very well. One caveat to that, it does not work on encrypted systems or locked BIOS.
Yeah, so I have actually used this on an engagement. I tailgated in through the cafeteria area at a client site and went to a conference room, and they had small form factor machine, and I was able to use Conboot, get an administrative session on, or log in as the administrator on that box, and then dump all the local hashes and then crack the hash and actually use that in the further engagement to end up getting them made administrator. So it definitely works.
Yeah, absolutely. So Wi-Fi keylogger. So the one that we've used is this keylog. It's KEELOG. And it's pretty neat. Basically, we actually tested last night with Wi-Fi keywords as well. So we weren't sure if that would actually work, but it does. So you plug the USB side of a keyboard into the keylog device to the wall, and it's very small. I mean, you can see here. We'll pull it out real quick. it's a very tiny device. Let's see if we can. It's so tiny. Can we actually find it? Here it is. So yeah, so small, right? So you plug this into the back of the desktop, plug the USB keyboard into this, and this has 4 gigs of storage and can log keys for days. I mean, text does not take up much space. I mean, unless I guess you're writing a book or something, but.
And how many people actually check the back of their computer for keyboard, for things that are plugged in that they, didn't plug in themselves?
Yeah, especially, would you even notice? Would you notice something like this? Probably not. The cool thing about this one actually stands up its own Wi-Fi AP on the device itself, so you can connect to it. It actually connects to. I got it backwards. It doesn't stand up an AP. It has wireless capabilities to connect to an AP. So you connect it to an AP you control. Then you connect to it over the AP.
Like your Pentest Dropbox.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just like a Pentest Dropbox. So, cool thing is you can just set up an AP, then get the logged keys from it from remote. So you don't actually have to go get the device. You don't have to go retrieve it. You can leave it there. Poison Tap. This is a very new and very interesting device that was developed by Sammy Kamkar. Basically, the gist of this device is, regardless of if the system's locked or not, you can actually harvest and siphon HTTP cookies from the top 1 million Alexa domains. And the way it does it is kind of neat. So basically, if you have a browser open on a desktop and you leave your computer, your browser's always making random connections to random websites, always trying to reload little iframes and things that are on different web pages, especially if you have some very noisy sites that have ads and stuff. As long as the browser's open, regardless of whether or not the laptop is locked or not, you can actually cause the laptop to redirect all its internet traffic through a device. And the way it does it is basically it stands up like a pseudo Ethernet interface. And so to the laptop itself, this looks like another Ethernet interface has been added to the system. And what it does is it actually makes it so that all internet traffic looks like it's on this device. So it basically applies all IP space to this device. And once the website starts trying to, or once the browser starts trying to retrieve whatever previous website was open, it will launch 1 million iframes to basically cause the browser to retrieve or attempt to retrieve websites for the top 1 million domains. And when it does that, you get any HTTP cookies that are not set encrypted.
And so this is why physical access is so great, because this and the next couple of series of devices that we're going to talk about, they abuse trust. So when you plug in a USB device, like a HID device or something along these lines, it can mimic something that the operating system inherently trusts, like a keyboard. There aren't a lot of protections around those things, so physical access can lead to some really interesting things, like the LAN Turtle. So this is, again, abusing trust of USB devices that are plugged in. So this is another thing that's generic looking. It's a generic USB adapter in a generic housing. And so essentially what this is going to do is you can preset it up to do a number of things. Remote access, scanning around the network, even man in the middle, monitoring of traffic. But one of the more interesting things was put out by Movix last year, where on a locked computer, you can plug this device in, and it will do this. If you ever heard of the tool Responder, it will attempt to grab credentials off the network or hashes off the network for you to crack, and then gain access with those credentials. And so this is probably one of my favorite things, is the rubber ducky. Again, this is one of these devices that I have successfully used on many occasions when I get in to just plug in an unlocked computer and gain a shell. Again, probably a PowerShell Empire session, but it just acts like a keyboard. When you plug it in, you'll actually see on the screen it types the commands that you put in as the script. This is another thing by Hack5. The LAN Turtle was also put out by Hack5. So you can script your own payload for it, or you can there are a lot of pre-generated payloads that are out, and it works on most platforms. Pretty much if it takes a keyboard, it will work. And so This is another thing that if you don't want to spend a whole lot of money on your home phone, because they're rather expensive, you can build it with Kali NetHunter. And so there are some caveats to it. They have good documentation out. I've built 2 different devices so far. I had a blog post recently on a Nexus 7, but that device isn't supported anymore, so I have a OnePlus phone. So this is my OnePlus phone that I recently loaded, and I think that we are going to use this for the demo. But the great thing about Kali NetHunter is a lot of the tools that we've already talked about are built into this phone. And one in particular that I really like is the Duck Hunter attack. So it's similar to the rubber ducky, and then when you plug it in, it's going to type in the commands just like you were typing on the keyboard. And now it's demo time.
Doing okay on time too, which is nice. Yeah, so we originally wanted to do a number of demos for like each of these things, but last night we kind of just started walking through this and we were like, oh, we have 45 slides, and we got to like this point where the first demo was, and it was like 30 minutes in, well, 45 minutes in. So we were like, yeah, I don't know, we'll do maybe one demo, but we can definitely show you guys these things at the table.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm going to demo is the Duck Hunter attack. So I have out on a BPS set up a PowerShell Empire listener that's already, it's up and running. Okay. Sorry.
This is difficult.
Sacrifice to the demo god.
Yeah, so we didn't kill enough cows last night.
I'm drinking enough beers.
Yeah.
Can we kill the lights today?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Is it possible to kill the lights in here, anybody know?
Alexa, turn off the lights.
Yes. That's something better.
So I'm not going to be able to hold the microphone and do this, obviously. So essentially, just plug in the USB stick, and this is a Windows 10 machine. And this is my Kali NetHunter phone. So with
PowerShell Empire, they have a stager module that you can just generate the Duck Hunters or the rubber ducky script that works on the rubber ducky device as well as the module inside of Kali NetHunter. So I've already copied that to the phone, so that is one step that you would have to do.
So the thing to consider here is like, he's got a phone, right? It's a cell phone. It looks completely inconspicuous. You walk into an organization, this device will, once you plug it into an open, unlocked computer, will create a remote session out of the network to our C2 server. So that's the thing to really kind of understand is like, he's walking into an organization, has a cell phone, plugs it into a system, C2 session out of the network. And it's pretty fast at that. I mean, it's, did you do it? You plug it in? Is it going? So it's, you can see the screens popped up here, the command terminal. So it's basically typing out the PowerShell Empire command that's going to actually drop shell. Yep, and it's done. So right now it should be calling back. Let's see what happens. Come on, demo gods. Come on, demo gods. Initial agent. Is that it?
That's it.
That's it. So shell right there. So you can see, so the initial agent is basically telling us that an agent has started on the system. Now we have remote command access, and this is, like he said, it's a VPS virtual private server in the cloud, C2 server. Cool.
Are there any kind of software that you may have in that system that would pick that up?
So the question is there any kind of software in the system that would pick that up?
So I don't have software on this machine. Antivirus isn't going to do it. There are USB access restrictions that you could put in place. So there are things, I can't think of any vendors off the top of my head, but you'd have to restrict access to the USB ports. It's essentially like plugging in a keyboard. So it's not, I'm not launching malware, I'm just typing it in, and the command that was typed in was a PowerShell command. So one other alternative is you could do PowerShell logging in your environment, which is probably a good idea for more reasons than this. And so, what do you guys think? Is that interesting? You could put cement in the ports. Yes. So you could purchase software. I'm not clear that GPOs would do something like that. I think you have to purchase, from my knowledge, a third-party software.
So for the most part, like a lot of people think like DLP products, data leak prevention products, would solve this issue. And a lot of times they solve the USB data storage issue, meaning like an actual USB data storage.
Yeah.
See, this is not a USB data storage type of device. It's a HID device. So it looks just like a keyboard to the desktop.
So essentially, I could have typed in all those commands, and so that's what you would have to prevent against, because I don't think that you would want to, an entire enterprise, say, well, I can't put keyboards in unless they're these approved keyboards. That sounds hard.
Does Ducky actually cover the hardware ID? Every USB device has this.
So yeah, that's a good point.
Product that could block that specific hardware ID, and it can block the Ducky attack.
Okay, so
if you're using the phone, you're going to have this hardware ID as well.
yeah.
So that gets involved.
So the question and the point was wouldn't you be able to identify a device ID? So theoretically, yeah, that's definitely possible. I mean, forensically, you will be able to identify any USB device that's plugged in, stored in the registry. So you could potentially do that, but as the point was made, with a phone, that probably becomes a whole lot more difficult. Although with Kali NetHunter in particular, there's really two popular devices, the Nexus line and the OnePlus line. There are some other options, but those are the only two that I've seen that I had success with doing. So.
Yeah, we've only got like 10 more minutes, so let's get through the rest of the presentation. We'll do some more questions, I think. Was that it? Oh, okay. Let's see. I don't believe you. I got conclusion slides next. How about that?
Oh, hey, there is another slide.
Sorry for the
Mm-hmm. Oh.
There we go. Okay. So the point we wanted to make is that there's a lot more to just compromising an organization than just walking in the door. Social engineering absolutely could be like, obviously weeks, months worth of training. Lockpicking itself could be the same. Any of these things you could talk about for forever. We wanted to just kind of throw all these things in a presentation and say, hey, we've got this bag and we bring all this crap in when we go do physicals and red teaming and go back.
And it's definitely fun to go through the TSA with all this stuff.
Yeah, so another thing, last tip is do recon on the organization prior to actually going there. If you have a physical coming up, do a lot of, there's plenty of open source intelligence you can do on the actual physical location before you actually go there. So things like, does the actual organization have Wi-Fi? You can find that. Wiggle.net is a website that basically stores a database of like open access points and things like the scene. So you can typically find if an organization has a specific SSID before you can go there.
Or even call the help desk and ask.
Yeah.
What's that one again?
Yep. So yeah, locate entrances, that kind of thing, before you go inside. So this is not going to look that great to people in the back, but if you want the slide, we'll upload the slides. But this is basically the whole gear list together. Yeah.
And again, this isn't comprehensive. This is one of those things that we want to put together just to show you what we do, and we add and subtract things, and setting up all this stuff takes a lot of preparation time. I think that just setting up the Kali NetHunter devices, I have hours invested in that.
Just with curiosity, can you post that information online? So
Absolutely. We'll have the slides available.
Yeah, we'll have the slides available. And that's it. Any extra questions? Now is the time. Any extra questions?
Hey, Beau. Beau,
Oh, any recommended RFID sleep protectors?
Yeah, so I have an RFID wallet that seems to work great because I guess I've been doing InfoSec long enough to have a healthy dose of paranoia. So, and I did test it once with a hit card and it seemed to work. If you can get your entire employee workforce to take your badges in and out of a hit, an RFID blocking device, good. But that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, you could block the cloning of a badge with an RFID blocking device, like sleep.
Any other questions?
So the question was, we mentioned the Bluetooth, and do we find it to work better? To be honest with you, I haven't done a lot of Bluetooth stuff because it's hard. I just haven't done a lot. The frequency hopping aspect of it, I tried to find my own devices, and it was rather difficult. So I don't think I knew the answer to that.
Cena's cheaper.
Is it cheaper? Okay. Yeah.
Like $80 cheaper. Yeah. That's a good reason to use it over the Uber too.
Yeah, that sounds like a great reason. So the Sona device is cheaper. So I mean, that was sort of the aspect. Yeah, I know that some of this stuff costs a lot of money. I think all said and done in the bag, minus the laptop, you're looking at least $1,200 to $1,500. And so I mean, it's not insignificant, right? But you could spend a whole lot of money on these types of things for sure.
On these NAC Bypass Device,
Yeah.
Yeah, it should. Because I mean, really, it's just trying to understand the traffic. It's not really getting anything specific. Oh, yeah, so the question was, would the NAC bypass device work with VoIP type of devices, right, or phones? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the same thing applies because the device really just listening to the traffic coming from both sides and trying to gain an understanding of what's actually happening and just kind of making its own assessment of how it can work with producing data out of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I've actually been on a test with Beau. We probably tested with Beau where we bypassed the Cisco with Beau and got onto the network.
Oh yeah, Beau was NAC.
Oh yeah.
All right, if that's it, we're done.
Thank you.